Okay, many opponents of Christianity today would claim that we simply cannot trust 2,000-year-old scriptures as they are unreliable. Would you say this is a valid claim?
No, and I would ask them, how did they come to that conclusion? What evidence do they have for that position? Because most people don't have evidence. They just have a slogan they've heard, Paul. Oh, the Bible's been changed throughout the centuries. So whenever somebody says that, I want to ask them questions. What do you mean by that? What do you mean it's been changed throughout the centuries? What evidence do you have for that position? In fact, with regard to the New Testament, I might add a third question and say, have you ever considered that the New Testament, we know what the New Testament originally said because we have nearly 6,000 handwritten Greek manuscripts, from fragments in the 2nd century all the way to complete manuscripts, all the way up to the time of the printing press. And we compare all those manuscripts, we can recreate the original to more than 99% accuracy. So we know what the original said. Even the famous skeptic Bart Ehrman agrees we know what the original said. The question is the original true? That's another question. But it hasn't been changed throughout the centuries in terms of the text being corrupted. We know what the text originally said.
Yeah, and I was speaking to Dr. Gary Habermas yesterday, and he was talking about the creeds found in Romans 10, 1 Corinthians 15, Romans 1, how early these creeds actually were. Can you say something about those creeds?
Yeah, Gary's the expert on it. He's identified 41 creeds in the New Testament that are earlier than the documents themselves. And I think the most important one is 1 Corinthians 15, verses 3 to 8, because that names what happened to Jesus and who appeared to him. And even scholars like Bart Ehrman, the atheist scholar from here in the United States, who is a big skeptic, says he agrees that creed goes all the way back to within a year or two of the resurrection, or a year or two of the event. He doesn't believe there was a resurrection, but he said this is an early creed. And Paul just wrote it down in about 55 AD when he's writing to the church at Corinth, but he's saying he received this earlier than that. Writing about 9/11 in the UK today, they could interview people that were alive and even were there and witnessed it.
Sure.
So despite the fact that the person is writing it right now in 2020, doesn't mean that the data is 20 years old. No. The data is fresh in the memory of, or even written documents that people have written down from the event itself. It goes all the way back to the event itself. So despite the fact that Paul's writing 1 Corinthians in 55 AD, the data that he includes in 1 Corinthians goes all the way back to the event itself.
Right. So what you're saying is right out of the gate, they had a belief that Jesus was divine, that Jesus Christ died on the cross, was buried in the tomb, rose again on the third day, and through trusting in that, we can be forgiven of our sin and saved.
Goes all the way back to the beginning of the Christian creeds